America, it's time for some straight talk. You love your phone. Look at you. You hardly put it down. But you don't love that expensive wireless plan, do you? So what if I told you can keep that phone, network, and number 2 for a lot less? Well, this is me telling you, it's time to switch to Straight Talk, guys. Bring your own phone and get unlimited plans starting at just $45 a month on America's largest, most dependable 4G LTE networks. Straight Talk Wireless, only at Walmart.
Savings may vary. Please refer always to the latest terms and conditions of service at straighttalk.com.
We continue on hour number 2 of Reasonably Take Nuanced Radio.
Yeah, calling me an idiot. It's not like I was at home for a minute.
I was about to say we've already had that. We've already been down that road in the first hour. Mike and Mike, Trey Wingo here with Mike Golic and Mike Golic Jr. on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. All phone guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and we are presented by Progressive Insurance. Do not forget, good people, we're giving you the Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. It sure feels like the NBA Finals are going to end tonight with the way the Warriors have completely dominated the Cavs and the finishing kick that the Cavs didn't have in Game 3. We'll get to that in just a little bit.
Right.
But Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Final between the Pens and the Predators was perplexing for a variety of reasons. And, again, Rick DiPietro, former NHL goalie, will join us at the bottom of this hour. We'll get into the goalie situation,
right.
Pekka Rinne, and why in one building he can look like Clark Kent and in another building he can look like Superman.
It's unreal. It's absolutely unbelievable. It gets pulled last night after 3 goals, and they go back to Nashville. Well, he'll probably be great, and I hope it goes to a Game 7.
And then what do they do?
That's what we'll talk to Rick about in a little bit.
But there are a couple of other things to get into in the game last night, which the Pens won 6-0. And they mostly involve Sidney Crosby.
Right.
Okay. So Sidney Crosby had his 56th career multi-point playoff game, which is tied for 4th most in NHL history. Now, I want to read the list of the top in NHL history. The most multi-point playoff games. Well, obviously, Wayne Gretzky, number 1 at 108.
Yes, he is.
Spent most of his career as an Edmonton Oiler in the 80s. Second on that list, Mark Messier, who spent most of his career as an Edmonton Oiler in the 80s. Next on that list is Jari Kurri, who spent most of his career as an Edmonton Oiler in the 80s.
He could score.
Then there's Sidney Crosby. Then there's Glenn Anderson, who spent most of his career as a Edmonton Oiler in the 80s, followed up by Paul Coffey, who spent the majority of his career as an Edmonton Oiler in the 80s. In other words, the 80s Oilers were really good.
Scored a lot of goals.
Scoring a lot of points.
Yeah.
So congratulations to crashing the party, Sidney Crosby. And speaking of crashing the party.
Yeah, he crashed.
There was that little duet, if you will. That the minuet, the dance between P.K. Subban of the Preds and Sidney Crosby, and this has been going back and forth with the Listerine and bad breath and all that kind of stuff. They clearly do not like each other, but at the end of the first period, they both got minors, and it sure looked like somebody should have gotten more of a minor because Sidney Crosby spent the majority of 10 to 15 seconds with Subban underneath him, pounding his head into the ice as if it was a pneumatic hammer trying to break up concrete.
It was amazing. And, you always try and get away with things if the ref's not looking. The ref is 3 feet away.
He's staring him right there.
Staring at him, watching. He stays. You can see the ref's legs while he's bashing PK's head into the ice. So, are we going to say this is hockey? And I get it. And listen, there may not be tougher athletes in the world out there. I know, listen, rugby players, MMA, I get all that. But these guys, are as tough as they come. There's no doubt about it. Crosby, though, not really known for a whole lot of that, but PK's been just been.
That's what he does.
That's
He's the
exactly
instigator.
Right. So they both get called for holding. They both, the minor, but it was under 2 minutes in the period, so they both left the ice anyway. They couldn't come back on. But you wonder, Mike, in this league, and Barry Melrose really kind of played it down, saying you're not going to do anything to stars of this league. But in this day and age where you're more involved in head injuries and more cognizant of head injuries, watching a one man bang another man's head into the ice repeatedly, boy, you just wonder if anything comes of this at all.
Well, and we learned last time that apparently the ice is the only thing that can send you into the concussion protocol.
Right.
So
the ice or someone's elbow.
The ice or someone's elbow, or the combination of the two here. And yeah, listen, there's certainly that glaring inconsistency where we care way more about concussions in one sport than we clearly do in this sport. Because if that similar situation had happened on a football field where the surface isn't basically like concrete, we're singing a completely different tune already. But that's the popularity of the sport. That's a number of other things.
Exactly.
My question is we talked about, we heard from Barry, and it could have been referring to, because Sidney Crosby also tossed a water bottle out on the ice.
Right.
We talked about not wanting to get your stars off the ice, not wanting to do that. It seems like you go out of your way to protect one star more than the other, because P.K. Subban, while he's not the player overall that Sidney Crosby is by any stretch, he's a star and he's a big
That's
name
exactly
in
right.
a burgeoning
Both of
hockey
those
town.
things.
Yeah, he is.
So why wouldn't you want to protect that guy just as much? Because if this is shoe on the other foot, we're sounding the alarms. We're calling for the National Guard.
Crosby's heading to the ice?
Yeah. And I guarantee the word association gets a little bit different there, too. No one's going to stand up and call Sidney Crosby a thug right now, but I guarantee if the shoe's on the other foot here, all of a sudden we have some weird word association that comes with a different territory.
Well, not only that, but let's be honest, Sidney Crosby is a guy who's dealt with his concussions his entire career.
Right.
I mean, he's had majority of time in his NHL career taken away because of head injuries. So if anybody would be apparently sensitive to the idea of not banging somebody's head into the ice, you'd think it would be Sidney Crosby.
Yeah, and you know what? We know a lot of this stuff in hockey. I love it in the stop in action when there's the hitting of the stick. You used to see all that face washing all the time. It's a physical kind of, I'm going to get you type of sport. I get it. We don't see the fighting, in the postseason, certainly, than the regular season. Yep. And I'm sure there are going to be many, and maybe DiPietro will be one that says that's just hockey. And it very well may be. Did it look like the worst thing in the world that you've ever seen? No. But
optics frame everything.
In this day and age of where we are, when you see a guy banging another guy's head into the ice, it takes on a different look nowadays.
It doesn't really even matter to me all that much, the players, because I get that. I mean, we played O&D line. That's a dime a dozen around those parts. I had someone actually try and lecture me about that this morning. I was like, no. I lived there. I know what goes on in that house, but to me, it's less about what goes on there, because it's a sport where there's pushing and shoving after almost every play, and it's awesome, and I love that.
Right.
My point is the league, because what you're trying to spin out of this, like hockey's ratings have been up during the Stanley Cup Final. Things have been going well for them. You've got Nashville, Smashville making waves in that scene in a big, big way. Why not capitalize it and try and take the next step in making your sport even more mainstream popular? Is what does every other sport do? Market your stars. And you got a guy in P.K. Subban who's unique personality-wise in a sport where you're not really rewarded for having a personality.
Absolutely. And by the way, we're not the only ones wondering why the calls went the way they did. This was Nashville head coach Peter Laviolette. I don't understand the call. I saw my guy get his head cross-checked into the ice 10 times. I don't even know what he did. So you're not alone. We're all in this together. And it's not bashing Sidney Crosby. It was just
right.
It was just an odd optic.
What are we calling it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, what we're calling it? We're calling it the MVP moment of the week.
As we should.
Because those two are the biggest stars probably for their team. Brought to you by Sport Clips. You watch sports. We cut hair. It's perfect. Sport Clips. It's good to be a guy. Speaking of perfect or almost perfect, I think we need to talk a little bit more about team building in the NFL and the way the New England Patriots go about it, because they do it better than maybe anyone I think I've ever seen, especially obviously in the free agent era, the way they attract stars, the way they retain stars, but perhaps more importantly, the way they pay stars. Julian Edelman, who had that unbelievable catch where the ball was just sitting there off the turf, brought it back and made the catch to keep I think that was the game-tying touchdown drive alive before they went to overtime in Super Bowl 51. Just got a 2-year or 3-year contract extension. It's decent money. It's not break-the-bank money.
It's $5 million signing bonus. Could be up to $11 million.
Exactly.
Yeah, $15 million.
And it begs the question, why doesn't everybody do it the way the Patriots do it? Tom Brady is still underpaid by any measurable standard of a franchise quarterback. And, oh, by the way, he got one for the thumb. And he's the only quarterback to have one for the thumb. Only Charles Haley and Tom Brady have 5 Super Bowl rings. Everybody in New England stays for less money. And I get that because you have the aura of Bill Belichick, and the resume is spectacular. But they never overpay for everybody. Tom Brady's not getting that 5th ring if Dante Hightower doesn't go up with a strip sack fumble that allowed them to cut it to 8 points with 7.5 minutes ago, and suddenly there was or about 4 minutes ago, and suddenly there was a ball game, okay? They let Dante Hightower go. They basically said, you go test the free agent market and see what you like, and if you want to come back, we'll come back at this price. He came back. The Patriots have perfected this way of building a team in the NFL in terms of not overpaying anybody. Why doesn't Why don't more teams do it the way New England
Well, what's
does
the draw? I mean, the draw to go back to New England, if you're going to take a little bit less money, is the
You
fact
play
that
to win the game.
You're going to win the division, and you're going to have a great shot in the playoffs to go to the Super Bowl. If not, you're going to go grab all the money you can grab. What's the incentive to go to a losing team, make them pay you more to go there, and you can line your pocket? So I think that goes a lot into the situation, and I think a lot depends on where you are in your career.
Yeah.
Have you not gotten that big payday yet? Do you want to go get it somewhere? Have you made a lot of money?
This was Hightower's chance to really kick the can.
Now, okay, what I don't know, what did Hightower get offered anywhere else? Was it enough? Was it? Maybe it wasn't enough over what New England was going to pay to make it worth as well. Okay, I can make an extra however many bucks. If it was substantial, I bet he'd have been gone.
Yeah.
That's just my thought.
And you've got the leverage that affords you the position to do that because, to your point, you can't discount the Patriots' resume because they've bet on themselves over and over again that says, we can do it without you. We don't think we need you. The only guys that we need are Robert Kraft, Bill Belichick, and Tom Brady. And you've got a guy in Tom Brady with a unique situation that Aaron Rodgers hinted at the other day. Like, we all joke about it, but that Giselle factor is probably pretty real and why he's always willing to take a little bit less money. And when you've got a quarterback that's not going to make you break the bank the way Tom's never made them do it, it lets you do a number of other things. That's why you see teams know they're on the clock. Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys are on the clock with that rookie contract before they got to back up the Brinks truck for him and Zach Martin and everyone else around there, because when that money gets long for the guys that you just have to pay to have a chance, it gives you a lot less leeway everywhere else, and that's where the Patriots always win.
Look what happened with Russell Wilson getting his money. What happened after Flacco got his money in Baltimore?
Well, it fell apart.
You don't want to sit there and blame the quarterback and say you're the but.
Players should get whatever they want.
When you give that money out, now you are really manipulating that salary cap, where if you get lucky with a third rounder like Russell Wilson, a fourth rounder like Dak Prescott, and you don't have to pay those guys for a while, man, you can do so much more.
But this goes back to even before Bill had the credibility, which is what I find interesting. Remember in 2001, he benched Bledsoe for Brady, and Bledsoe was livid. I remember that. I'll never forget that soundbite. We ran it on NFL Live when you were not doing it all those years ago.
Yeah.
I look forward for the opportunity to compete to get my job back. And then Terry Glenn. He wouldn't play Terry Glenn and he was the game-breaking wide receiver they had. He found another way. And then they cut Lawyer Malloy before the season began. That's another thing. I've never seen Teddy Bruschi after a game when they lost the first game of the year 31-0 in Buffalo. He was furious, and the team was, because Lawyer Malloy was one of their guys. He was the glue guy, and they went back to the Super Bowl, and they won it anyway without him. I mean, this is the brilliance of Belichick, is that he's figured out a way, or he has multiple systems. I don't want to say he has a system, because they have different game plans every week depending on who they're playing. They do it better than anybody because they look at these guys as interchanging parts.
Right.
They won games with Jimmy Garoppolo and Jacoby Brissett last year at quarterback. One of the reasons we're bringing this up because Odell Beckham obviously is looking for the big payday.
And he's going
to get it, but what point do you break the bank for someone when you see somebody else doing it? Whoever thought that Chris Hogan would be an invaluable piece of a Super Bowl championship team?
Are you saying don't pay Odell that money? Say this is all we have for you?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I wonder when other GMs and coaches and front offices will say, let us look at the way the Patriots have done this, and is it something that we can do as well?
Which is interesting because really the market's set for a lot of the top players, and New England just doesn't have them. Because New England has nobody on their roster that's equal to Odell Beckham, and they're not going to pay a guy like Odell Beckham. So I get your point.
And we talk about that all the time because they do a good job late in the draft when you get those caliber of players in free agency and with the undrafted free agents that you bring out there.
Yeah, I mean, look at Brandon Cooks, for example. They got him on a rookie contract.
Right.
Before he ever played a dime for them, they've already picked up his fifth-year option. So he got his fifth-year option picked up before he even played a single snap with them. And if he thinks he's going to break the bank in New England, good luck with that. You know what they'll do? They'll have him for 2 years.
Yeah, they will.
And they'll say, here's what we're going to pay. If not, you'll go somewhere else. And then they'll find somebody else. So, and Brandon Cooks is an exceptional receiver. Don't get me wrong. I think since they came into the league, only Odell Beckham Jr. has more, whatever they are, 25-yard touchdown catches than Brandon Cooks. He is a lift litter on defense. He's a guy that can break open a coverage at any time you want. But you know what they'll do? As long as Bill's there, as soon as he goes away, they'll find somebody else and plug it in for a convenient dollar.
I'm trying to think, has a player left there of his own want to in free agency and broke the bank somewhere else? I mean, basically it was them getting rid of the Richard Seymours of the world and the Rodney Harrisons of the world, right?
Yeah.
Before they made that monster money there. I'm trying to think.
Well, in fact, they had the one big signing was a Dallas Thomas in 2007. He came over from Baltimore, and it didn't work out. Yeah. I think they cut him the next year. I think he was only there 2 years. And it's almost like they learned, well, let's not do that.
Well,
again.
they did play Stephon Gilmore
this
year.
Yeah.
Right?
They paid Gilmore a different deal, but they still haven't paid Malcolm Butler.
No, they haven't paid Malcolm Butler. But
it's amazing.
I guess has anybody left there as a free agent and gone and signed big money somewhere else?
No, because, again, to your point, they're doing it with guys that don't necessarily mandate that kind of payday.
Yeah.
And then when you do have guys that they've built up to that star status, they let everyone know no one is above the chopping block around here except for Tom.
Yeah.
No one is above all that, and we'll even see eventually when that hits a line, when they decide, all right, if we gotten enough out of him, are we going to cut bait? Because I think Tom Brady finished his career in a different uniform.
If he wants to play till 42 or 43 or 44,
exactly.
I agree with you.
They're going to get rid of him before that. And to the point, we see the players leave all the time. You mentioned the system, Trey, that other people would try and replicate. How many assistants have we seen leave New England and try and go do it elsewhere? Yeah. Like, this goes back to a guy. These guys know how the sausage is made in there, and they still can't make the same
Weiss, Crennel, Josh McDaniels in Denver was a complete disaster. I think that's one of the reasons he turned down the San Francisco job. He couldn't afford to have a second failed coaching.
Bill O'Brien.
Yeah, now Bill's done it okay, but he still hasn't had a quarterback. He's won the division 2 years in a row. Like, the only guy that left and got paid was Matt Castle. He went.
That's right. When he went
to Kansas City,
came in after when Tom got hurt in the first game. That team won 11-5 that year.
And remember,
didn't make the play.
But remember, they won 11 games with Matt Castle.
Yeah.
As a quarterback. And that year, I'll never forget this because it was 2008, the year Brady went down. That year, Matt Castle did something that Tom Brady had never done in his career: back-to-back 400-yard passing games. Now, he's done that since then, but that's what's in place in New England. They got back-to-back 400-yard passing games out of Matt Castle, who had not started a game since high school.
I guess to answer your question of why doesn't everybody else do it like them, because they can't.
Yeah.
Because they're not as good.
Yeah, but
right?
It's funny. We always talk about this being a copycat league. Copy them. If you're going to copy what they are doing.
What's going to be tough is they've been doing it forever. All these other star players have been paid. How are you going to all of a sudden not pay them anymore? You know that's not going to happen in New England. Other places are going to shell it out.
It's a remarkable thing. Mike and Mike is presented by Progressive Insurance. More independent agents sell Progressive Insurance than any other brand. Find an agent at Progressive.com. Now that's Progressive. So what the Patriots are doing is progressive. Everyone else is trying to be progressive. And then there's the Jets.
Oh, boy.
This came in. Again, these are OTAs, so you have to take them with a grain of salt, but this one was quite stunning. According to Connor Hughes of NJ.com, talking about Christian Hackenberg, the second-round pick from a year ago, who was redshirted last year, and they don't really have a quarterback for the future, so they got to figure out what they've got. This is what Connor Hughes had to write on NJ.com about Hackenberg. Quote, "When Hackenberg misses, he really misses. He threw just 2 interceptions in team drills, but nearly tossed 6 others. And I'm not talking about a receiver falling down. I'm saying the defender just dropped the ball. Other times, the wideout / running back / tight end was wide open, and Hackenberg sailed it over his head or bounced it to him. That can't happen. In 3 media open OTAs, Hackenberg hit reporters with passes twice."
And they also said he did throw some nice passes. A guy's got a strong arm. There's no doubt about that.
Just ask the reporters that got beat.
Yeah, they got hit
hurt a lot.
But, I was a little surprised last year, a second-round pick, that they didn't feel at any point they were going to put in a game. That, you started looking at a guy like Goff, who was the first pick overall, and it took him a while to even feel confident to get him in a game. But Hackenberg, and then you think, okay, it's the offseason now. They'll work him in and get him going. I've been amazed at this. I've really been amazed at what they've done there, and then bringing in Josh McCown, who's 37 years old, to kind of bridge wherever they were going to go. And everybody thought they were going to pick a quarterback at 6. They didn't. Jamal Adams jumps. It falls into their lap, I should say. I don't know what's going to happen there, and I don't know if they're just playing the Sam Darnold, Wheel of Fortune, for
all in
year.
for 2018. Well, there's 3. There's Josh Rosen and Josh Allen as well.
Right.
And then Mason Rudolph apparently is going to get some looks as the Oklahoma State quarterback.
Yeah, it's getting pretty interesting. You know what? It feels like to me the Jets got us right where they want us.
Sucker and assist?
Oh, sucker and assist. Rope-a-dope right now. And for Christian Hackenberg, we're talking about him. We probably wouldn't have been otherwise. It's like what Brett Favre did when he came into the league. He said, I tried to throw every ball as hard as I could so they would notice me popping off the tape. Christian Hackenberg is spraying him. He's letting everyone know, I got this cannon right here. Everyone can catch some of this, even you reporters that are going to go badmouth me right after.
It's just look,
well, there's a point of view.
Yeah, hey, listen, I'm telling you, not enough people are talking about that. It's brilliant.
That's certainly one way to look at it. Oh, Junior.
Might be a stretch. Who knows?
Coming up, if the Preds win Game 6 and get back to Pittsburgh for Game 7, can they really trot out Pecorine back in goal? By the way, that sounds like a soft cheese, doesn't it, Pecorine?
It does.
What would you like?
Wonderful
Could I get like a salami with a Pecorine on the side?
Wonder where that
possible?
pairs well with.
Sounds wonderful.
We'll get former NHL goalie Rick DiPietro in here next. Hey, always a pleasure to have you on board, my friend.
Thanks, man.
You stay classy.
Later. Greeny, you know how to win at business?
Tell me how.
Show up early for meetings. That way everybody who's only on time looks like slackers.
Well, I got a better way to win at business.
What's that?
Instant free nights at La Quinta Inns and Suites. You can show up with no advance reservation and redeem your La Quinta Returns loyalty points for a free night that same night just by using the La Quinta app.
I feel like I'd win at business more than you.
I'd cream you at business.
Impossible. I'm undefeated at business.
Go to LQ.com now and prepare to win at business.
We move on with Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented, of course, by Progressive Insurance. And all phone guests appear on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And then there are just guests that appear, like your son, last segment.
Everybody's appearing.
Yes, well, that's, we're a draw. People don't want to talk about it.
Heard that.
We're a draw. And we are delighted to draw in Rick DiPietro, former NHL goalie from, this is one of the great names of any radio show I've ever heard, Han, Humpty, and Canty.
Yeah. From
ESPN 98.7 FM in New York. Joins us in studio giving the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contract.
So you're Humpty.
I'm Humpty, like Humpty Dumpty.
You're gonna have to explain that to everybody why you're Humpty.
All right, so I'm actually Howard Hughes style in my basement, deciding if I'm going to retire or not. Don't want to talk to people. So Alan Hahn, who is the host of the show, drags me out of the basement and says, you should try this radio thing. I think you'll be good at it. So we did it. We kept doing it. Our tagline after every show was, we'll keep doing it until they kick us off. Haven't kicked us off yet. And I was, say, a voyeur on Twitter. Never would tweet, but I had to get an account. So I went with, because I'm always hurt and the doctors couldn't put me back together, Age Dumpty. So he made me actually say my Twitter handle on one of the shows. It stuck, and I think it's kind of strategic. So if the show fails, it's Humpty's fault. No one knows who I am.
So
we're back together again.
Nice.
I like
start the Rick DiPietro show.
By the way, we also need to bring you down to our level.
Really,
you have put it together. You've got the tie, the jacket, the grooming is all tremendous.
Nicely coiffed. Yeah.
Welcome to Slothville.
Yeah,
is
you're
what we're
way
saying.
overdressed for this.
Well, listen. So to make it up for you guys, since I know I had to dress for SportsCenter, I actually brought gifts.
You brought gifts?
Yes.
Oh, well,
then you're fine.
Because listen, Mike
Yeah,
and Mike is one of my favorite shows. My favorite show on the radio. So I figured.
You got gifts? Anytime you bring gifts, you're more than welcome.
Mr. Golic, I realize that you're a foodie like myself.
Yeah.
And you celebrated National Donut Day, so I did some research.
You didn't.
Look at this.
No, you didn't.
Today just so happens to be National Strawberry Rhubarb Pie Day.
Strawberry
Whoa.
what?
Whoa.
Rhubarb pie. I made it a crisp, though, because I know you like crisps.
Look at this.
So what I did is I didn't just get one pie, I got two pie. Now, I know you had the pie caking, correct?
I did have the pie cake.
All right, so this right here, this top pie here, because I know you're a dessert guy, this is from called the Milk Bar in New York City. It's actually called crack pie. It's that good.
What is in it?
I have no idea, but it is
please
like
don't
crack.
say what's
Once
in it
you
is
take
what's in the
one
title.
bite, you're addicted, and that's the strawberry rhubarb underneath it.
Just let me get a whiff.
Whichever one you'd like.
I'm not going to lie. The strawberry rhubarb was very nice, but I'm not a fruit in the pie guy.
It's more of a vehicle to eat ice cream.
There you go.
That's
okay.
all it is.
Well,
So
I love that thought process.
He's vegetable and fruit free most of his life.
in the last gift, since last time I was on with you, we talked about Terry Collins dressed up as Mr. Met giving the fans the finger.
Right.
Was I figured mascot, you guys, new show, you kind of need a mascot.
Okay.
So
Boy, he just comes
This-
bearing
this is
gifts.
very
This is
good.
really good stuff.
Everyone else pales in comparison.
I have to say this, though. This was, so I'm thinking in my mind, Mike Golic, dog guy, loves his pugs.
Yeah.
I got Trey, the wind beneath my wingos. What would be the perfect mascot?
Oh, there it is.
Pug with wings.
A pug with wings.
Oh, my God.
Can
What's
I
the
just say,
size of that? I'm
did
gonna
you
be
ever
putting
know
this
that you're
on.
my hero?
I'm going to be trying this on at the break, and that is awesome.
Wait, but
That
whoa.
is
You get
just
the
awesome.
pies. I get the shirt.
No, I'm wearing the shirt.
Then I take the pies.
Here's the thing.
That's the way it goes.
Here's the thing, Trey. I'm bigger than you. I'm taking them both.
Yeah, but I can outrun you. I just
can?
saw you running into the studio. You were running like this.
That's true. They always say head up, straight back.
You were not aerodynamic
Whatever.
in that stance.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That's
Thank you
very
for having
nice
Did
me.
you guys just become best friends?
I think we did.
I think you did. That's rock solid.
I just can't be in the same room as him with the way he looks.
No,
he's dressed well and he's good looking.
Look, if this was on looks, you do the entire show in a dark closet.
You're not kidding.
So, and let's just be
Wow.
clear about that. We've worked through that already. So, again, open invite whenever you want to come back.
Absolutely right.
But we are glad you're here today.
Yes, we are.
Because we need to figure out the Pekka Rinne mystery. Okay, why is he so good most places, and he was amazing in the 2 games in Nashville? Pittsburgh is like his personal house of horrors. He's 0-6 there in his career, and his
Giving up
goals
about
against
14 goals a game.
Yeah, it's like 5 a game.
5 a game.
What's going on?
Well, it's amazing when you start looking at what the home teams have done in this series. They're actually outscoring road teams 24-6.
Right.
So it's obviously home ice advantage. But Pittsburgh's one of those weird teams that, and I struggled actually to play in Pittsburgh as well. Is they create most of their scoring opportunities off the rush, and usually those rushes are odd man rushes. And when you get the skill like Crosby, Kessel, Malkin, I mean those guys are some of the best goal scorers in the league. So Pekka Rinne's probably thinking to himself, I struggled in games 1 and 2. I went as far to change my equipment. I got all new equipment. Feel good about myself. So we win game 3 and 4. Going back to Pittsburgh, he actually changes his stall in the locker room before the game to try to change up the luck. First shot is a partial breakaway from the best player in the game. Sidney Crosby hits the post, boom, right on the power play. And now, as a goalie, you're hoping, all right, let's ease into this thing, couple long shots, feel good about myself. The first goal, point shot, through his legs of all places. He's 6'5", and you get beat through your body, which is a goalie you never like to have happen. And then from there, it's just, Pittsburgh finds
Russ
ways.
with the backhand.
That was an unbelievable shot.
Unbelievable shot. Notre Damer.
And then I almost went to Notre Dame. And then Evgeny Malkin, again, second or third best player in the NHL. He comes down off the defenseman sticking in the net, and that's a wrap for Pekka
But their
Rinne.
aggressiveness in the first 8, 10, 12 minutes of the game, they were down in Nashville's end the whole time. And I'm just amazed at did you said you struggled in Pittsburgh, but for those that don't know, Rick, goalie for the Islanders, did some team have your number?
Some building.
Some building, someplace like what we're seeing here? Is this a common occurrence, maybe not to this extent that we're seeing in the Stanley Cup playoff finals for goalies? Is this something that happens a lot?
I wouldn't say a lot. For me, it was Carolina. For some reason, that building, it was a little dark in that building. I don't know if it was the team and how they played, but every time I went down there, I struggled. Billy Smith, Hall of Famer Billy Smith, was actually my goalie coach when I first started, and he used to tell me stories. There was one place he would go, and he'd actually tell the backup goalie before the game, listen, you should get mentally ready because I'm terrible here. And then every time he played in that building.
That's psyching yourself up before the game even starts.
When you win 4 Stanley Cups, I guess you can do that. It was just a night off for him, but he just knew going in, I'm not going to have any success here, so might as well let the backup know.
Wow, that's insane. So here's the question going forward. Let's assume, because the home team has won every game in this series, Nashville wins Game 6 to force a Game 7. Can you start Rinne in Game 7?
You have to.
You do.
You have to, because the only reason you saw the goalie change in Pittsburgh and it's worked is because Matt Murray was their starting goalie. He won them the Stanley Cup last year.
True.
That was Mike Sullivan's guy actually down in Wilkes-Barre in the minors. UC Saros is a good goalie, but he's not Pekka Rinne. We were talking about Pekka Rinne before this series, the guy that was going to win the Conn Smythe Trophy, and he's been unbelievable at home. You just hope that they find a way, Nashville finds a way to play better as a team in Pittsburgh, because right now, if you look at talent, pure talent alone, you could make the argument that Pittsburgh has the 4 best players on the ice.
Right. Although for the first 2 games, they were dominated by Nashville, and the difference was the goaltending. So 5 goals and 12 shots in game 1.
I thought that as well, because this wasn't the situation in Pittsburgh. I get it. So if you start Rinne, how long can it go? If you gave up a goal, a minute and a half?
It was quick.
Last night, I think it was right around a minute and a half.
It was first shift. They got a power play. They scored there.
Right.
And then
they scored.
By the way, they haven't scored a power play since 5-on-3 in Game 1.
So now it's Game 7. So you pulled them after 3 goals last night. So what do you do now?
Get there. How long is the leash?
How long do you wait before you have to pull them?
I think if you're Peter Laviolette, you would have probably liked to see UC Saros go and start the second period and not let the first shot he sees into his net. He wasn't great either, but Pittsburgh's that good. You probably have a shorter leash than you would in Game 5, but again, you need more from the team. Mike Sullivan, the coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins, probably had a pregame speech where he asked the team to do certain things, and he couldn't have gotten any more from his team. Fast start. They scored on the power play. Phil Kessel was great. Crosby was great. Malkin was great. Anytime you're going to get 8 points from those 3 and 5 points from your defenseman, you're probably going to win the game.
Can you tell Pekka to stop going out of the net, though, and play? And
that's the strength of his game.
That's what he does, though.
Sure, I know.
But he double pumped a couple of times.
You could tell he was uncomfortable.
Truth be known, I know he does that. I was being sarcastic because he was not doing it well.
No, he wasn't, and that was actually funny. So I'm listening to the broadcast, and I would actually so I like to handle the puck, probably too much. I actually told the GM of the Atlanta Thrashers during my meeting before the draft, he asked me, what would you like to achieve as an NHL goalie? And rather than say, I want to win a Vezina, a Stanley Cup, a Conn Smythe, I said, I'd like to score a goal. So needless to say, I was taken off their board. I wasn't drafted by Atlanta. But I would actually, so Mike Milbury, the GM, would actually call down to the coach if I was handling the puck bad, and I would have a guy skate to my net and go, hey, stay in the net. And I'm like, what do you mean stay in the net? No, they want you to stay in the net. So then to be a jerk, I would just purposely stay in the net, and the puck would just be laying there. But, hey, you asked me to do it, I do it.
Hey, be who you are. Be who you are. All right, so take me through the mental thing, because obviously that's what it is for Pekka Rinne right now. It is a mental thing. What can you do? Because everybody's very superstitious, especially in sports. What can you do if you're Pekka Rinne to get over the mental hurdle? Because if it goes back there, he's got to be thinking, what can I do to do? What would you do if you were in his shoes to change it?
What would I do? I mean, I would sacrifice a live chicken. Whatever it took, I would get.
It has
priest.
to be a live chicken, as we learned in Bull Durham. It can't be a dead chicken. It has to be a live chicken.
I actually did it for the Islanders. I ate a whole bucket of KFC before the game, and they actually won. So maybe you could try that. Listen, I mean, we're all mental as goalies to be playing the position in the first place. He's tried changing his equipment. He's tried changing stalls. I think you just have to hope, because it's a Game 7, that you go in and something good happens. But right now, he can't feel good about going into Pittsburgh. And the way that Pittsburgh's playing at home, if you're the Nashville Predators, you don't feel good about going to Pittsburgh either.
Well, that is one where in my sport, you would have that if our offense is struggling, our defensive meeting would be like, okay, we need to pick it up a little bit. That would seem to be the other players. Hey, we got to pick it up for him. We got to help him out if we're going back for Game 7, because he's struggling there.
Well, Pekka Rinne is the face of the Nashville Predators, and everything coming out of the locker room last night was how much they love Pekka Rinne and how much they're gonna rally around him. I think you'll see a great effort from this team in Game 6, just because Nashville is unbelievable right now. I'm actually mad because I thought I was going to do Sports Center last week, so I went and bought catfish, and my whole fridge was just full of catfish. I couldn't throw them at Matt Berry, but no.
Actually,
I think
we'd be okay with you throwing it at Matt Berry.
Sure, we
I think
would.
we're fine with that.
He does act up a little bit. I just think when you get into a Game 7, you just have to hope that your best players are your best players. And unfortunately for Nashville, when you look at the series, Nashville's best players are the defensemen. Pittsburgh, their best players are their forwards. And last night, Pittsburgh's forwards were their best players.
And that's interesting. That's really the first game in this series where that happened, because even though Pittsburgh won those first two games, Nashville was clearly the better team.
And in Game 4,
clearly the better
but
team.
Trey, in Game 4, although Pittsburgh lost that game, that was the best game they had played the series.
Agreed.
And Kessel started shooting the puck more. Crosby was better, and all of a sudden you saw what happened.
He wasn't going to let anything go. He was like the Black Knight in Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
There you go.
None shall pass.
None shall pass.
None shall pass.
Exactly right.
Rick DiPietro with us from Han, Humpty, and Canty, which follows us on ESPN 98.7 FM in New York. Coming up, we've talked about the goalies, but there's a little beef.
Oh, there is.
Between one of the stars in the league and one of the more interesting players in the league. We'll get Rick's thought on that.
And now, insurance-minded speeches from Geico.
Let's talk about power. To illustrate this, allow me to tell you a story about how I moved a tow truck 25 miles using only my index finger. I was stranded with a flat tire. I opened the Geico app. Then, with a few taps of my finger, I beckoned emergency roadside assistance and a tow truck to my car. I invite you all to unleash the full potential of your fingertips with the Geico app. Thank you.
We roll on. Mike and Mike, Trey Wingo, Mike Golic, Rick DiPietro, and the greatest pie in the history of the world.
Really good.
Rick
brought it as a present. It's called crack pie. There's got to be a different name too.
No, it's crack pie.
It's crack pie.
It's called crack pie.
In the South, it's called Jeff Davis pie. Trust me, it's the exact same
pie.
thing. It's delicious.
Wow,
that is really, really
Very
good. And if we get through the rest of the segment without mispronouncing something, it's a miracle, because there is nothing
but sugar,
butter, sugar, cheese, everything. It's all right.
And Rick also brought me a shirt because he knows I'm a dog guy. I have a couple of pugs as well as a.
Technically, he brought the shirt to me, but you just took it.
Oh, I took it. Yeah. It's a.
Let's be clear about that. Because I have the labs, you have the pugs, but the wings.
I have a lab too.
You have a lab too.
I have a lab too.
Well, then I'm lab shaming you right now, because you never talk about your lab.
Talk about Tahoe, my 12-year-old darling little girl.
Who's on your Twitter? It's a picture of you and a pug.
Well, it's because you can. The pug can be a lap dog.
I don't want to hear it. I never hear you talk about your.
Do you have any
lab.
dogs?
I do. I have a tiny dog too. I got a little miniature poodle.
Carry it around in a bag. It's not like an accessory.
I don't. More like Dr. Evil.
Yeah.
Just carried it under my arm.
Nicely done. All right, Mike and Mike reminding you, if you want to get in touch with us or know anything more about this pie, tweet us at Mike and Mike through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. Nothing makes a spring, birthday, or anniversary more magical than 1-800-Flowers.com. Right now, 1-800-Flowers offering an exclusive 24 for 24 offer, 24 multicolored roses for $24. That's only $1 per rose. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. The only thing better than that would be the flowers with the pie.
There you go.
You put it all together, flower pie would
That's
be
phenomenal.
unbelievable.
Yes, it would.
Okay, so we talked a little bit last segment about the struggles of Pecorine in Pittsburgh and whether or not you have to play him in Game 7 if it goes there, and you said absolutely. What do you make of the Sidney Crosby versus P.K. Subban thing, which is sort of blossomed into – it was kind of fun until last night where they just sort of jackhammered each other, and then there was that shot of Sidney Crosby just bam, 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 taking P.K.'s head into the ice.
I'm not sure if I like how you describe that.
Yeah.
Listen, I think as crazy as this is to say, and I know listening to your show with the whole Bryce Harper getting thrown out and everything else, I mean, with our sports, with hockey and in Major League Baseball right now, when your stars aren't involved for virtually the entire game like they are in the NBA, it's actually probably a good thing for the sport. I hate to even say it, but you have the face of the sport going up against P.K. Subban, who you're hoping the NHL does a better job of turning into a star because he's more than willing to do it. But listen, the funniest part about that for me was they got 2-minute holding penalties.
Yeah. I don't see much holding.
No, I don't. He's holding the ear hole of his helmet and smashing his face on the ice. But listen, this is Sidney Crosby saw it from the first shift. He's the captain of that team. He's not necessarily always the emotional leader, but you could tell how they responded to him after that first shift. Like, they realized, okay, this is the best player on our team. He's taken his game to a whole new level. That's what superstars do in must-win situations. And that was him. Enough is enough. Like, we're not going to be bullied around because Nashville's gone out of the way to be extra physical with not only him, but the entire team. So he said, you know what, enough is enough. And actually, I made the point on my radio show, that's what I would have liked to see in Cleveland do to Draymond Green. Because that's what happened. I mean, if you look back at last year's NBA Finals, as soon as Draymond Green left, he's the heart and soul, he's the tough guy on that team. All of a sudden, LeBron James assumed the tough guy routine, and then his whole team kind of picked up on that, and they came back. But
is there any part of listen? And I'm all about that kind of thing. I mean, that's stuff that I kind of did in this day and age, with especially now with head injuries and concussions and learning more. And the guy that was doing the headbanging there, Sidney Crosby, and the concussion history he has. Are we in a different era now where the league has to, and I'm not talking, they're not going to suspend him or anything, but has to do something when you're seeing one guy bang another guy's head into the ice? Are we there yet, or is it still, hey, this is our sport, leave us alone, this is kind of what we do?
I think there'll probably be fake outrage from the NHL.
So it'd be Twitter outrage.
Charge. It's some Twitter outrage. But,
Twitter
I mean,
outrage,
behind closed doors, I'm sure Gary Bettman's probably happy about this because, I mean, I was listening to your son's show on the way up here, and the first thing he was talking about was this. So, I mean, it's tough. We're a sport that people have a hard time relating to because you can't just go pick up hockey skates and a hockey stick and go out and play. So we're trying to draw the casual fan into the sport, and we need storylines. And if you've listened to any NHL player after a game, even the best players, they're not going to give you much. I mean, it's cliche fest. So, I mean, I remember back in the day when Joe Sakic was one of the best players in the NHL, one of the guys from the NHL came up to me and he goes, you know, we're trying, but we just can't do anything. I'm like, well, we have stars. Like, you need to promote the stars. He goes, well, have you seen these interviews? Like, we try to get these guys more involved, and they just don't want any part of it because it's all about the team, and they're not bigger than the team.
How can they? You know, we have about a minute left in this segment here. How can they? What can they do to promote and market them more?
I think they need to get guys like P.K. Subban out in front. I mean, he's more than happy to pick up a microphone. I mean, listen, he embraced everything that it is about Nashville. As sad as he was to leave Montreal, and again, like, if you're going to trade your best defenseman to Nashville because he's just a distraction in the locker room, I mean, that's not a good enough excuse. So, I mean, if you're not going to reward guys for being stars, then you're not going to be able to create stars.
Well, let us ask you this real quickly. The issue with Sidney Crosby.
You're lost?
Yeah, a little bit.
He's going into a sugar coma.
Sugar coma got in me. This is my favorite list with the multi-point game. He had 56 now. Everybody else on this list of the most multi-point games, Wayne Gretzky, 80s Oiler, Mark Messier, 80s Oiler, Jari Kurri, 80s Oiler, Sidney Crosby, Glenn Anderson, 80s Oiler, and Paul Coffey, 80s Oiler. How good were the 80s Oilers?
Oh, it's amazing is this, though. It's funny because, I mean, how you guys probably spent the last week and a half talking about LeBron James and Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Is there anyone in the history of any sport that's further apart from everyone else than Wayne Gretzky?
Yeah,
no.
that's exactly
it's
right.
Not even close. Yeah. When you're talking about the best of all time.
He's got 108 multi-point games.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Second place, 77. But again, that 80s Oilers team was pretty good.